The first thing I lost was moisture. It happened so fast I didn't understand it at first. One moment I was swallowing normally, the next my throat seized and every swallow scraped like broken glass. My tongue felt swollen and useless, glued to the roof of my mouth. I tried licking my lips and realized they were cracking already, skin splitting as if I'd been stranded in a desert for days. I laughed nervously. The sound startled me. It didn't echo the way it should have. It came back warped, delayed, as if someone else had laughed a half second after I did, copying me poorly. My heart began to race, not from anxiety, but from something mechanical, brutal. It slammed erratically, skipping beats, then pounding so hard my vision pulsed with each contraction. My chest felt tight, overheated, like my ribcage was being cooked from the inside. I stood up to get water. The room slid sideways, not spinning, sliding, like the world had been placed on a tilted tray. I reached for the counter and missed by inches. When I finally grabbed it, my hand sank into the surface slightly, as if it were rubber stretched, thin over something soft and breathing. That's when I realized I couldn't focus my eyes. Everything flattened into the same distance. Near and far stopped meaning anything. The walls, the floor, my hands, everything existed on the same visual plane, like a poorly rendered video game. Depth cues vanished. I felt disoriented in a way I had never experienced before, like my brain had lost the instructions for interpreting reality. Then the voices began. They weren't loud. They were conversational, casual. Someone behind me said my name. I turned. No one was there. The voice continued anyway, now coming from the corner of the room, then from the ceiling, then from inside my own head. It spoke in complete sentences, calmly commenting on what I was doing. "You're pacing. You look scared. You shouldn't fight it." I pressed my hands over my ears. The sound didn't change. Shadows began detaching from objects. I watched the shadow of a chair stretch away from its legs, elongating across the floor like a dark liquid spill. It pooled near my feet, then climbed slowly up my legs. I could feel it, cold, heavy, clinging. I screamed and kicked at it. My leg passed straight through. The hallucinations escalated rapidly after that, as if my mind had lost all filtering ability. The room filled with people, fully formed, detailed, undeniably present. They stood in clusters, blocking exits, leaning against walls, sitting on furniture that bent unnaturally beneath their weight. They didn't look monstrous at first. That made it worse. They looked almost normal. Faces slightly off, eyes reflecting too much light, smiles frozen just a fraction too long. When they moved, their joints bent incorrectly, lagging behind the rest of their bodies like poorly synced puppets. They stared at me in total silence. Then they began whispering. Not to me, to each other. Talking about me like I wasn't there. "He's overheating. Heart won't last. He knows now. He shouldn't have trusted anyone." I tried to force my way through them. They parted easily like smoke, but closed in again immediately behind me, sealing me inside their circle. I could feel their breath on my neck, dry and hot, smelling faintly of dust and rot. The crawling sensation returned with a vengeance. This time, I could see it. My skin rippled visibly as things moved beneath it, long, segmented shapes writhing in organized paths. I clawed at my arms until my nails tore skin, but the movement continued beneath the surface, uninterrupted, indifferent. I stumbled into the bathroom. The mirror showed me something that wasn't human. My reflection's pupils were so dilated they swallowed the whites entirely. Veins pulsed across my face like living wires. My mouth opened and closed on its own, jaw creaking loudly, lips peeling back to reveal gums that looked bruised and inflamed. I watched myself age rapidly. Wrinkles formed and deepened. Skin sagged. Teeth blackened and loosened. Then the process reversed violently, snapping me back into my own face with a wet, snapping sensation that made me gag. The reflection smiled. I didn't. Hands began emerging from the walls, not bursting out, phasing through. Pale, cracked hands with split fingernails and dry, bleeding knuckles. They reached slowly, deliberately, fingertips brushing my skin with feather-light touches that burned like frostbite. I ran. The hallway stretched infinitely. Every door led back to the same space. Each time I passed a doorway, I glimpsed scenes inside. Memories I didn't want to see, arguments, embarrassments, moments of cruelty I had inflicted or received. Each one looped endlessly, characters staring directly at me as if aware of my presence. The heat became unbearable. My skin felt like it was shrinking. Sweat poured off me, soaking my clothes, but my mouth and eyes burned worse than ever. I tried to drink water and choked immediately, my throat spasming violently, refusing to cooperate. I became convinced my organs were failing. I could feel my heart tearing itself apart. I could feel my lungs stiffening. I could feel my brain overheating, thoughts misfiring in painful jolts. Every sensation was magnified beyond tolerance. Time collapsed. I experienced hours and seconds stretched into eternities. I watched myself die repeatedly, each version different. In one, I seized and suffocated. In another, my heart simply stopped. In another, I wandered endlessly through my apartment, forgotten by time. I saw my friend clearly then, standing in the living room, smiling. He spoke casually, as if commenting on the weather. "You're really losing it," he said. I begged him to help me. He shook his head. "This is what you get." The room peeled open behind him, reality splitting like fabric tearing. He stepped backward into the darkness, still smiling, and vanished. Later, how much later I can't say, the phone rang. This time it didn't dissolve. It didn't turn into insects or scream at me. It rang. When he told me what he'd done, his voice was calm, detached, almost proud. He explained it like a lesson, like something justified. Vengeance, he called it. Said he wanted me to understand helplessness. I vomited until nothing came up. The hallucinations didn't stop immediately. They lingered for hours, faces in walls, hands brushing my skin, voices whispering from vents and drains. Sleep came in fractured, terrifying bursts filled with fever dreams and false awakenings. When morning finally came, the world looked wrong. Colors were too bright, sounds too sharp, shadows too intentional. I survived. But something fundamental broke that night. I don't trust my senses anymore. I don't trust silence. I don't trust my own thoughts when I'm tired or stressed. Sometimes, just before sleep, I feel the dryness return, the crawling just beneath my skin, and my heart starts racing for no reason at all. Because atropine didn't just make me hallucinate. It taught me how easily reality can be taken away, and how betrayal can poison you long after the chemical is gone. I didn't wake up the next morning. I surfaced. That's the only word that fits. Consciousness didn't return cleanly. It bobbed up through layers of heat, confusion, and pain like a body rising through thick, dirty water. Every time I thought I was awake, the world peeled apart again and dropped me back into something worse. The dryness never left. My mouth felt calcified. My tongue was swollen, cracked, useless. When I tried to swallow, my throat spasmed violently, as if it had forgotten how. Each breath burned. My chest rose and fell in shallow, frantic motions that felt disconnected from my will. I opened my eyes. The ceiling above me crawled. Not metaphorically, crawled. The tiles shifted against each other like plates of bone grinding together. Thin black lines seeped from the seams, dripping downward in slow, deliberate trails. They didn't fall, they reached. I tried to move. Nothing happened. Panic exploded instantly. I tried to scream, but my jaw wouldn't open more than an inch. A hoarse animal whine escaped my throat instead. My heart responded by slamming into a gallop so violent I thought it would rupture. The sound of it filled my skull, drowning out everything else. Then the faces leaned in. Strangers, doctors maybe, or nurses, or imposters. Their faces elongated and warped as they spoke, mouths stretching impossibly wide, eyes sliding too far apart. Their voices layered over each other, echoing, distorting, looping mid-sentence. "Stay still, he's still delirious." Restraints, heart rate spiking again. Hands grabbed me, real hands, firm, cold, unyielding. I fought, or at least I tried to. My body jerked and spasmed uselessly while straps tightened around my wrists, my ankles, my chest. The sensation of being restrained triggered something primal and catastrophic in my brain. The hallucinations surged instantly, flooding back with renewed intensity. The hospital room dissolved. I was back in my apartment, but worse, rotting, collapsing. The walls were peeling inward, revealing layers of exposed nerve and muscle beneath the paint. 4 lines became pale, translucent worms burrowing into my arms. The heart monitor morphed into a mouth, each beep a wet, mocking laugh. I was convinced they were killing me, that this was punishment, that I deserved it. Time fractured completely. I lived entire lifetimes in minutes. I died repeatedly. Each death felt final, absolute. I remember one where my heart simply stopped and the room went silent. No light, no sound, just a vast, empty awareness stretched into infinity. Then suddenly I was back again, gasping, heart slamming violently as if dragged back against my will. I hallucinated conversations that lasted hours. Doctors arguing about whether I'd have permanent brain damage. Nurses whispering that I'd never be the same. I heard my friend's voice clearly, standing just out of sight, narrating my deterioration like a documentary. "See?" he said calmly. "I told you at last." At some point, I ripped out the fourth. I don't remember doing it. Only the aftermath, blood everywhere. Red streaks smeared across the sheets, the walls, my hands. Or maybe that part wasn't real. It's impossible to know. I remember alarms screaming, people rushing in, someone shouting my name over and over as if trying to anchor me to this reality. They sedated me, or tried to. Even unconsciousness wasn't an escape. My dreams were indistinguishable from waking hallucinations. Endless corridors, white rooms folding in on themselves, hands reaching from walls, faces emerging from floors. I watched myself restrained again and again, each version of me screaming silently as doctors leaned over with masks that fused into their faces permanently. I woke up restrained multiple times. Each time, I believed it was the first time. Each time, I panicked harder. By the second day, or what I was later told was the second day, I had completely lost my sense of identity. I couldn't remember my last name. I couldn't remember where I was or why. I didn't recognize my own hands. I stared at them for long stretches, turning them over, flexing fingers slowly, trying to convince myself they were real. Sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they dissolved into smoke when I looked too closely. The hallucinations changed character after the first day. Less overtly monstrous, more convincing. I saw staff members who weren't there, had full conversations with them, asked for water repeatedly, only to be told I'd already had some, that I was imagining my thirst. The thirst was unbearable. It eclipsed everything else, a dry, burning ache that consumed my entire awareness. Even when water touched my lips, relief never came. It felt like pouring liquid onto stone. On the third day, the fear shifted. I realized with horrifying clarity that this might never end, that my mind had been permanently derailed, that this state, this confusion, this distorted reality was my new baseline. The terror of that realization was worse than any hallucination. I sobbed uncontrollably, restrained, humiliated, unable to articulate what was happening inside my head. I remember asking a nurse very calmly if I was already dead. She paused before answering. That pause nearly broke me. Eventually, slowly, unevenly, the delirium began to thin. The hallucinations lost cohesion, faces stopped appearing in walls, voices faded to indistinct murmurs. Time started behaving more normally, though it still slipped unpredictably. I recognized the room, recognized my name when it was spoken, recognized the crushing weight of shame when I was told what had happened, when they explained atropine toxicity, when they explained delirium, when they explained how close I came. I was released days later, shaky, weak, hollowed out. Sunlight felt aggressive. Sounds were too sharp. I startled at everything. Sleep came reluctantly, filled with vivid nightmares and false awakenings. Weeks later, I still don't feel fully intact. My memory has gaps that never filled back in. I have moments, usually when overtired or dehydrated, where the dryness returns suddenly, where shadows feel too intentional, where I have to consciously remind myself that the walls aren't breathing. And betrayal lingers worse than any symptom, because the most terrifying realization wasn't the hallucinations. It was how easily my mind was dismantled, and how someone I trusted knew exactly how to do it.